Hey there, Shamsi here. Welcome to a Berserker's Technique build guide for the Domination Fang Relic Set. This build guide assumes you are 1445 and have at least the 2-piece of the Domination Fang Relic Set and you're playing Berserker's Technique. If you aren't 1445 and you don't have the 2-piece, it doesn't really matter. For the longest time I've played this build without it and it feels very smooth. I will go over everything you need to play this build: skills, tripods, stats, engravings, gems, and cards lastly. And know that this video will be cut into different segments, so feel free to skip to anything you need. So Berserker's Technique is a build that focuses on filling up your burst meter and then entering an empowered burst mode and dealing massive damage while in said burst mode. Where you fill up your burst meter is just by attacking anything. It sounds simple, but just using any random ability won't do much. Thus we're using abilities that have the Fury tripod, as you can see on the screen, and any ability with this tripod increases your burst meter gain. We also use the Awakening Chains of Vengeance, as you can see here, which is the biggest Fury gain of them all. And before I show you any rotation examples, let's go over everything you need to play this build. Starting off with stat distribution. So how do you want to distribute stats here? So if you're running relic stuff, you want to have a crit specialization neck, 1 swiftness earring, and the rest is just specialization rings and 1 earring. This will put you at something close to this. You want to run 300 swiftness, 1200 specialization, and 400-ish crit. This is for the relic accessories. If you do not have relic accessories, not having swiftness here won't hurt you much. Just going for specialization and crit should be fine to get to this much specialization. And after you get relic pieces, this is what you want to go for. So why do we run 300 swiftness? Why is this important? First of all, the cooldown is nice, but the main reason why we're doing swiftness is to get that 5% attack and move speed. The reason why we're doing that is while we're bursting, we get 20% move speed and 20% attack speed. This paired with a spirit absorption tripod gets us to 40%. On 40%, Raid Captain, which is another engraving we will run, which I will talk about later, gains the full damage benefit. With 40%, your build will feel very smooth, you will run around very fast, your Strike Wave and Hellblade will charge up way faster, all of your animations will be the fastest they can be. So 40% is what we're going for, and having 5% from swiftness is how you get there. Specialization, having 1200 specialization makes it so your burst duration lasts 220% more, as it says here. You get more fury, your bloody rush does a lot of damage. That's one of the most appealing things to me, is that your Z skill and in burst mode does a heck ton of a lot of damage, and your awakening skill does more damage as well. Crit, obviously, just, you know, anything you have left after you slot in specialization and swiftness is nice. This is what we're going for. Skills. So pretty standard stuff here. Most of the skills are skills you would generally see in a Berserker lineup. Red Dust obviously being one of those, and the new tripod damage amplification is the one you will want to go for 100% of the time. There's no question, like for row number 1. Row number 2, crit rate, really no question here. Weak point enhancement is situational. Bloody Slash is PvP, and then Red Wave is your single target tripod in the third row. Red Shock is AoE, and I've tried Red Wave and Red Shock. They're both nice. However, Red Shock has a very long charge up animation, which in the case of Red Dust, Red Dust does not have any push immunity, like paralysis immunity, like most of the other Berserker skills have. So taking a longer animation makes you more exposed to getting pushed off, and then your Red Dust goes on cooldown for nothing. So Red Wave is better because the animation is way faster. That is the reason why I'm taking Red Wave in last row. Tempest Slash, Focus, no question here. Focus is just a Fury Grain tripod, you need this, it's very important. Weak point detection, no question here. Weak point detection is just more damage, and most of the time you will fight push immune foes, which are just bosses. So, and last row, Driving Hit versus Storm Slash. This is personal preference. You can either take Driving Hit or Storm Slash, it really doesn't matter. It's up to you how you want to use this skill. In my personal preference, I take Driving Hit, and that's what I go for. So you can take any, doesn't really matter. Strike Wave. Wave in the first row, more damage, that's the one we go for. Limit Break, more damage. Earth Flip, more damage. Earth Flip is just way better than Blaze Wave because Blaze Wave only does 2 instances of damage. Earth Flip does 4. So we want Earth Flip, no questions here. Finish Strike. Finish Strike is one of those skills that actually does have a choice in row number 1. Row number 1, you have the choice of Tenacity versus Enhanced Strike. Tenacity is a skill most people will go for. However, Enhanced Strike is the more risky skill to go for, like skill tripod, and that's the one I go for because it does more damage. So that's the one I go for, and I'm already used to knowing that I do not have push immunity on my Finish Strike. So if you wanna go Tenacity, you can go Tenacity. Weak point detection, no question here. You know, this one does damage only when the target is 50% HP or less, so you want to take weak point detection to gain that full damage for the entirety of the fight. And then Lights Out, there's absolutely no question here, does way more damage than Shockwave. Like, it's insane how much damage you get over Shockwave for just a 6-second cooldown. Going to Hellblade. Hellblade Leap, there's no really discussing it here, like AoE radius versus pull. This might be good for chaos dungeons. This is the one you take for a single target. You do not want to level Leap. Leap is just good as a level 1 tripod. Do not transfer Leap on your gear, it's a waste of a tripod slot. Melt is the one you take because the other Lava Jet no one takes. It's just bad. Deadly Blow you can't, you're not Mayhem. So Melt is the one you have to take for more damage. And then Earth Flip, no question here. Bloody Eruption completely removes 1 damage instance, so you want to take Earth Flip. Mountain Crash is the newly reworked skill. Well, not really reworked, it just gained counter, which means you can drop Chainsword. Here you can drop this completely and run this as your counter. It also has a focus tripod, which is probably the main reason why you're running this in the first place. So you run focus, swift prep, earthquake shock. There's no real question here. This skill doesn't really do any damage, so you don't really want to run enhanced strike here. And this doesn't work on bosses. Numbing effect. Earthquake Shock is the one you want to choose over Earth Impact, because Earth Impact gradually gives you Fury over its damage time. Earthquake Shock gives you all that Fury that Earth Impact would have given you over 6 seconds at once. So you want to use Earthquake Shock, no question there. Windblade. Windblade, quick prep, focus, wind shift, no questions here. Wind shift versus Squall. Wind shift is just a better tripod. The more you use Squall versus wind shift, the more you will realize why wind shift is better. Focus, no question. This is the only reason why you're running Windblade in the first place, and quick prep means more uses of your Windblade. Shoulder charge, excellent mobility, you gain a little bit of distance. That's why you get level 4 here. That's all you need. Runes. Runes are bleed for red dust. Get the highest level of bleed you have here. If you have legendary bleed, get that. If you don't, get anything below that. Wealth rune. In this build, use three wealth runes. The highest one goes on Tempest Slash. If you do not have a legendary one, just use purple here. If you don't have purple, just use blue. Whatever you have, just use the highest one on Tempest Slash. Second highest one goes on Windblade, and third highest, if you have 2 epics, I don't, I'm very close though. Third highest goes on Mountain Crash. And then we talk Gale Wind. Gale Wind, you only use the highest Gale Wind on Finish Strike if you're using Enhanced Strike. If you're not using Enhanced Strike, you do not want to use a high level Gale Wind on Finish Strike, because Tenacity essentially makes it so you have no risk using Finish Strike. So if you're using Enhanced Strike, use a high level Gale Wind. If you're using Tenacity, use the lowest level Gale Wind here. Obviously, Strike Wave and Hellblade, you also want Gale Wind on. Pretty standard stuff. Quick recharge on your shoulder charge. Sometimes it procs, so it's nice. Engravings. A lot of options here actually. You can choose engravings depending on prices right now in the game, and you can choose what you want to run based on how expensive certain pieces are. Obviously right now what you're seeing on the screen is overkill. You do not need 5 engravings for the current content in the game. I just found these and they were very cheap, so I bought them. And in case you're wondering what you can run if you do not have the opportunity to buy 5 engravings on level 3, here's what I would run in that case. So Spirit Absorption Raid Captain is something I would run always, and Awakening if I can. The best you can do for yourself right now is to get Awakening, Spirit Absorption, Raid Captain, and then level 1 of your Berserker's Technique. If you can get level 1 of the Berserker's Technique, level 1 is still the strongest level of the Berserker's Technique, because it gives you crit damage and it negates exhaustion after your burst ends. So you want to run level 1, Raid Captain, Spirit Absorption, Awakening. If you cannot run 3 level 3s, I would run Awakening, Spirit Absorption, then Berserker's Technique level 1, and then anything you can get as a third engraving. Raid Captain would be nice, but I wouldn't get Grudge until I had a 4th slot. So you can get Grudge, Awakening, Spirit Absorption, Raid Captain, all level 3, and then still have level 1 of the Berserker's Technique, and then get level 3 of the Berserker's Technique later. But it's no secret that the least important engraving here to get to level 3 is Berserker's Technique. Despite it getting buffs, this can still stay on level 1 and you can get something else that is actually important. Gems. Gems, what you go for is, you know, your pretty standard Berserker stuff. You get your Strike Wave and your Hellblades, cooldown and damage, Red Dust cooldown, Bloody Rush. Bloody Rush in this build does a lot of damage. You want gems for cooldown and damage on Bloody Rush. Tempest Slash cooldown and damage, and then Finish Strike, cooldown and damage. Pretty standard stuff. And then we have cards. In most cases right now you're gonna be using the Lost Wind Cliff set, 6% crit. I unfortunately do not have the Lane Armament, so I will be using Light of Salvation. This also works on 12-piece Awakening for Voltan, because Voltan is taking more damage from holy attacks, so this is pretty much what you do for cards, either crit set or this set with if you have enough Awakening, and that's pretty much it. Going over pets real quick, what you need is Specialization and max HP. This is pretty much standard for this build, and this is what you should go for. So let's go over the rotation now. So rotation is pretty much you do everything you can to get into Z, and then from Z onwards is pretty easy. So the first thing you can do is do your Awakening, and with the Relic Set on, you will get a buff which reduces your cooldown. So if you have the Relic Set, which I do, you want to use your Awakening first and then use all your other abilities. Your Awakening does less damage anyways, so using Red Dust before it doesn't really make much sense, because you want to get less cooldown on Red Dust. So let's do that. You use Awakening, you use Red Dust, all your skills. It takes all your skills to get into Z, and after that you can get into Z and use your Z, your Bloody Rush. And then from there on you use your filler skills, which is Tempest Slash, Windblade, and then you wait to have at least 2 skills that are Finish Strike, Strike Wave, Hellblade, or Bloody Rush off cooldown, and then you use those like this. You use Red Dust followed by any of the 4 strong skills, and that's pretty much your entire rotation. You play around Red Dust, and that's pretty much it. Once your Z runs out, so I will speed up the video here. Once your Z runs out, your Awakening should be back up, and you can go back into your burst mode fairly quickly. This is only with the Relic Set, however. If you do not have the Relic Set, you will still have a cooldown by the time your burst mode ends. And there we are. So we just ended our thing, and we do the same thing again. Use entire rotation, Strike Wave, Hellblade, and we're back in our Z. And that is how you play this build. So the last thing I want to mention in this video before I end it are legendary sets and relic sets. If you're still not a high enough item level, you will want to run a 5-piece Argus set, preferably armor, because crafting the sword is kind of expensive. And then you want to run, you know, your dungeon gear from your Abyss dungeons. You want to craft your chosen greatsword. I still have it, as you can see, because that is cheaper and pretty much does the same thing. You want to craft your armor, and this gives you crit for a few seconds and stacking up to 5, and then you get a buff. That's pretty standard. Most classes will go for this. But relic set talking, right now, if you're watching this in the destroyer patch, you can only craft these 4 items here. You cannot craft the last 2. you require Vicus. You need to kill Vicus. We do not have Vicus right now, so what we will do, we will craft, you can do two options here. You can craft 4-piece and have 2 set Argus, or you can craft 4-piece and have 2-piece of Poem of Salvation. This is what I will personally do. I will craft Poem of Salvation because there's this little neat trick here which is called gear conversion. So if you go into gear conversion, this you will open up whenever you craft your first relic set. With gear conversion you can convert any of your current existing armor pieces into any other set. So let's say you have Dominion Fang and you want to convert into Nightmare. You can do that for a price which you can pay later, of course. And that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, or catch me sometimes live on Twitch, twitch.tv/shumsi. Sometimes stream there, but very rarely nowadays. That's it. Shumsi out. Bye bye.